The Indian Child Bride and the Old Arab Husband. A novel by Dr. A. Ahmed. This narration continues the story of the Arab sugar daddy and the beautiful poor Indian girl. It was written in English and translated into Arabic by Dr. A. Ahmed. It is a tale that is narrated in 6 books. Book 2. The Arab Sugar Daddy Turns into the Granddaddy the Devil. Copyright. All rights are reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the author except by a reviewer, who may quote brief passages from the review for printing in a public newspaper, general magazine, school journal, or university article. All characters in this novel are fictitious and any resemblance to real people, living or dead, is purely coincidental. Chapter 30. Making great plans for the future. The Muslim lawyer, Sheikh Barkatullah, was able to collect the recorded and written confessions of the judge of the High Court, the police commissioner of Mumbai, and the police commissioner of Hyderabad. In addition, he prepared his own written and recorded confession too. He went first to the hotel, met the loyal Indian maidservant Ifat Khan, and made her hear the recorded confessions. After that, he took with him the maidservant to her Arab master, and both came like an ugly old crow and a black owl to visit the imprisoned Iblis, the devil who was called Lucifer before he fell in disgrace and was cast in the bottomless pit in Mumbai. Sheikh Firoz bin Ahmed asked his Indian wife to tell him what she had heard. Ifat has begun to narrate to her Saudi husband whatever she remembered from the 4 recorded confessions of the corrupt Indian lawmen. It took her close to 1 hour to accomplish that difficult task. After her memory helped her to narrate some of the recorded confessions, the old man asked her tens of questions before he felt satisfied and convinced with the recorded confessions. He also looked at the 4 written confessions without understanding what was written in them. All 4 confessions had been written and signed in Hindi. After that, the old man gave the green light for his sincere Muslim lawyer and his obedient Indian wife to travel to Switzerland together on the same plane and complete the secret deal. He also ordered his Indian maidservant, or teenage wife Ifat, to mail on the same day the recorded and written confessions of the Indian lawmen of the law to his house's address in Tehran. Ifat Khan followed the order of her husband and went to the nearest post office, mailed the secret materials to Iran, and returned to her hotel. The following day, the happy lawyer Sheikh Barkatullah came to the hotel and asked the Indian maidservant to accompany him to the Swiss consulate. Sheikh Barkatullah has never been to any Western country. It is his life's dream to see the Western world, but he knew that dream would never be fulfilled even if he became a Hindu man, died 7 times, and was reborn 7 births. The only foreign country he thought he might visit is Pakistan. Even he knew he might not be able to visit the holy cities of Mecca and Medina, where there is the house of Allah, which is called the sacred Black Kaaba, and also the tomb of his gracious Prophet Muhammad. May the peace and prayers of Allah be upon him, and also may Allah bless his blessed posterity. But after Allah came down from heaven in the form of an angelic black burqa-clad zero and showered these blessings on him, he felt like he was the luckiest and most blessed Muslim man on earth. He has never dreamt of being one day an Indian crorepati, or an Indian person whose net worth is at least 10 million rupees. Before luck knocked on his door, he never expected to ever fulfill his life's dream of visiting the West or immigrating to the Muslim country of Pakistan. Now, all his impossible-to-fulfill desires are going to be achieved after the blessed Indian Muslim girl, Ifat Khan, was sent by his Allah to the High Court and came and picked him up from the gaggle of 15 lawyers. Sheikh Barkatullah now loves Ifat so much that she became his symbol of good luck. He has never seen her face, but he believes that she would be so beautiful and her face would be so radiant and shining like the face of Fatima al-Zahra, the daughter of the Prophet Muhammad. He also believes that such a blessed and holy Indian Muslim girl who is very faithful and obedient to her Arab master would be in her secret private parts pure and holy. If this is the case, like the daughter of Muhammad, she would not have monthly menstruation too. Fatima. The daughter of the Prophet Muhammad was nicknamed Al-Zahra because she was believed to be so pure and holy that Allah did not put on her the curse of the mother of all humanity, Eve, the wife who tempted her husband Adam and made him disobey his creator by eating from the forbidden tree. For that unpardonable sin, God has made her menstruate every month, and she has passed her curse to all women. Although Fatima al-Zahra had sons from her husband Ali ibn Abi Talib, two of whom were known as Hassan and Hussein, still, some Muslim historians claimed that she never had menstruated in all her life. By the way, it is a coincidence that the name Ifit means a chaste, pure, and holy girl. It is an Indian name of a girl which is the corruption of the Arabic name of the girl Afaf. Sheikh Barkatullah is puzzled by the honesty and loyalty shown by the teenage Indian girl Ifit Khan. He could not believe that a poor young Indian maidservant could be entrusted with such a huge amount of money and still Satan could not tempt her to run away with it. If she is like any other young Indian woman, she would not hesitate for a second to run away with such a huge amount of money and spend the rest of her life as a rich Maharani, the Queen of Queens, First Lady, and wife of Maharaja, who is the King of Kings. Nevertheless, the blessed, honest, pure, holy, and loyal Ifit Khan decided to remain a lowly maidservant in her Arab master's employ rather than run away and become one of the richest women in India. Sheikh Barkatullah wished in his heart that Allah would bless him with such a faithful maidservant to be his daughter-in-law. He determined in his heart that when he got hold of his 60 million Indian rupees, he would get Ifit Khan married to his first son, Maqsud Barkatullah. He already had mentioned her to his family and told his wife and children about her and how honest, humble, and blessed a maidservant she is. If the loyal maidservant Ifit Khan agreed to marry his blessed son Maqsud Barkatullah, the wealthy lawyer would take her and his son and family members to Pakistan and throw the best marriage in the history of Lahore city. Among all the cities of Pakistan, Barkatullah decided to leave the land of the accursed Hindu idol worshippers, immigrate to the blessed land of Muslim Pakistanis, and settle in that city. He chose that city because he has distant relatives who were fed up with fighting in a never-ending blood feud with Hindus in Ahmedabad city in Gujarat state, immigrated to Pakistan, and all of them with their children and animals settled in Lahore. Barkatullah had already contacted his good relatives in Lahore and requested them to find him a big mansion in the richest area in the city and book it for him. He wants a house that has 10 rooms so that each of his 9 children can get his or her room. His house in Mumbai has only 2 small rooms and all of them are stuffed like sardines in tins. He promised that he would come to Pakistan and pay off the entire sum of the spacious and opulent palace as soon as he returned from his important business trip to Switzerland. The Muslim lawyer also promised his wife, 9 children, and his aged parents that he would take them all to the holy lands of Mecca and Medina to visit the sacred tomb of the Prophet Muhammad, the holy house of Allah, and jointly perform the Hajj rituals. Moreover, his 5 sons are told that there is no need for them to pursue their secular education any longer. As soon as he returns from his important business visit to Europe, he will give each one 2,500,000 rupees so that they can start their own business and be filthy rich, just like their successful father. To his 4 unmarried teenage daughters, he promised that he would find good Muslim boys, marry them off, and settle them down. He admitted being too afraid to allow them to continue their education in secular schools and possibly fall in love with accursed Hindu boys or unclean Christian infidels and bring great shame and curse to his blessed and holy Muslim family. Chapter 31. An Islamic Qurbani Celebration. The happy Muslim lawyer Barkatullah swore by his exalted Allah and gracious Prophet Muhammad that when he returned from the West he would bring the best foreign clothes to his wife and 9 children. He also told his family that as soon as they would reach Lahore city, he would buy for them the most expensive 4-wheel car on the market. In India and Pakistan, a 5-passenger car can take up to 15 passengers plus the driver. The only thing the lucky lawyer Mr. Sheikh Barkatullah did not share with his wife and children is that he is planning to find 3 young and beautiful, Allah-fearing, Pakistani Muslim girls to marry. He planned, each year, to wed himself to one beautiful young Lahori Muslim girl until he would complete the blessed Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad and the Holy Quran of having 4 wives at the same time. Their ages should be between 13 and 15. The second wife should be 15 years old. And the third wife should be 13 and the fourth wife 14 years old. He decided not to be that shameless pedophile and go for an 11-year-old girl as the wicked old Saudi did. With those devilish plans in mind, Sheikh Barkatullah took the blessed and obedient Indian Muslim maidservant from the hotel to the Swiss consulate to apply for tourist visas. To ensure that the consulate would not reject their applications, if it claimed that Barkatullah is her mother's brother. She attached an official letter from the Abu Dhabi International Bank that showed her bank account balance. The consulate could not believe such a young Indian Muslim girl could have that much money. Contacting the bank eliminated that disbelief. The following day, the consulate issued the 2 visas for the rich young Indian girl and her old uncle. After that, Ifit and Barkatullah went to Air India building to purchase their air tickets and book their flight. They are told that the nearest date for booking would be in 1 month. Nevertheless, they are told that if they want to fly immediately, they have to pay more and purchase first-class air tickets. Before purchasing first-class airfares, Ifit and Barkatullah consulted the old Saudi man. His consent was obtained. They returned to the Air India building and bought first-class tickets. Their trip is scheduled for a couple of days. When all is ready, the old man imposed more conditions for his 2 important foreign delegates. First of all, he ordered that the 2 air tickets and Indian passports should be kept with his faithful maidservant Ifit Khan. Secondly, his Muslim lawyer Sheikh Barkatullah is to show up at the Mumbai International Airport 3 hours before the flight time. Thirdly, Ifit Khan has to take a taxi from her hotel and travel to the Mumbai International Airport alone. Fourth, in the plane, his 2 Indian servants should not sit together or allow anyone to know that they are having anything in common. Fifth, when they arrive in Zurich City, they should stay in the same hotel, but in separate rooms. In no uncertain terms, his Muslim lawyer and his Indian maidservant should not stay in the same hotel room. His conditions given, the old Saudi lifted up his both hands to the sky and ordered Ifit Khan and Sheikh Barkatullah to lift up their 4 hands to their exalted Allah too. Then, he loudly recited Surah Al-Fatiha, the first chapter of the Holy Quran, and sent them with the blessings and protection of Allah and His beloved messenger, Muhammad ibn Abdullah ibn Kilab. May the peace and prayers of Allah be upon him. After kissing his wealthy imprisoned client and saying goodbye to him, Sheikh Barkatullah escorted her in an air-conditioned taxi and dropped the obedient, pure, and holy maidservant Ifit Khan at her hotel and gave her his blessings too and promised to meet her at the Mumbai International Airport in 48 hours. Actually, that day, the Muslim lawyer is in a great hurry. His wife and children have organized a big feast and party for him. The family invited 200 Muslim men and women plus the uncountable number of their children and dogs to the great feast. The Barkatullah family spent 45,000 rupees on preparing for that big feast. Everyone invited was told that the happy party is in honor of the successful business that Sheikh Barkatullah has started with a big international European enterprise. The crooked lawyer lied to everyone, even his family members, that he has started an international import and export company. His trip to Switzerland is for the commencement of the Foreign Business Syndicate. He claimed that he had been invited by his European partners to come to Zurich City in Switzerland for the inauguration ceremony of the International Business Organization. With the nodding heads of every Muslim around him, the corrupt lawyer swore by his Allah that he is going to quit working as a wakil or a secular advocate. He argued that his Islamic conscience convicted him of the big sins that he committed by doing a profession that is openly condemned by Sharia law. According to Islamic Sharia law, lawyers are not accepted at court of law, and hence it is haram in Islam to study secular law and become a lawyer or a secular judge. Only those who have attended a bona fide Islamic college and studied Sharia law would be allowed to become judges in Sharia courts. In fact, according to all schools of Sharia law, soliciting is not a part of the Islamic judicial system. It is an innovation that was created by the secular Western judicial system, which is man-made and not divinely revealed as the Sharia. And according to Islam, every new system that is not founded in the Book of Allah and the Sunnah of His darling messenger Muhammad is simply considered an innovation. Every innovation leads to hellfire. Accordingly, the suddenly religiously revived Sheikh Barkatullah told everyone that he is planning to quit working as a solicitor in the secular Indian courts and start an acceptable business to his Allah of importing and exporting. He said further that his Prophet Muhammad, before receiving his first revelation from his Allah in the mountain cave in Mecca, used to work in the import and export trade of his first wife Khadija bint Khuwaylid. The three types of people that are persona non grata in the Islamic judicial system are a woman, a lawyer, and an infidel. In any case, Barkatullah had truly made up his mind to forsake the profession that he worked in for so many years and had used its income to fill the stomachs of his wife, children, and himself. For celebrating the great party, Sheikh Barkatullah slaughtered 5 goats, 3 lambs, and bought 400 chickens to celebrate his new overseas business and thank Allah and the Prophet for the great treasure that he brought to his life. If he is allowed, he might have also slaughtered a couple of cows. But a cow is a sacred animal for Hindus, and therefore killing and eating it is a worse crime in Mumbai than slaughtering and eating a human being as cannibals do. In any case, the happiest and richest lawyer in India has been made to jump over each goat and lamb that is beheaded in front of the door of his house. A Muslim is required to celebrate every blessing by slaughtering an animal as a qurban to his Allah and jumping over its blood. In that way, he is expected to break the curse that is hindering his blessings or give thanksgivings to Allah for blessing him. That day, the Barkatullah family and their 200 Muslim guests, along with their many children and domestic animals, celebrated the happy party with merry hearts. That day also, everyone filled his stomach or her tummy with delicious mutton biryani, chicken curry, chicken tandoori, and various kinds of sweet Indian dishes. Some close relatives have even been blessed financially too. Chapter 32. Looking for the Muslim girl in black burqa. On the day of the overseas departure, the happy Barkatullah family came to the Mumbai Chhatrapati Shivaji International Airport accompanied by more than 100 Muslim brethren. Half of the guests who celebrated and enjoyed the delicious food on the night of the merry celebration have come to the international airport to see the blessed Muslim man, Sheikh Barkatullah, flying abroad. In keeping with his new station in life, Barkatullah rented 2 buses for those who wanted to come to the airport and say goodbye to him and see him how handsome and well-dressed on his first overseas trip to Europe. The 2 buses picked up all the guests and their little ones from their houses and brought them to Mumbai International Airport. Some of them wanted to bring their ugly and emaciated dogs, but they are told animals are not allowed at the international airport. Most of the guests have neither been to the airport before nor have seen an airplane prior to that Memorial Day. The same guests are promised that they will be picked up again from their houses and brought to the international airport to welcome the wealthy business tycoon Mr. Sheikh Aldeen Barkatullah on the day of his arrival from Europe. The Barkatullah clan, his wife, their 5 sons and 4 daughters, and some remarkably close Muslim relatives came to the international airport in a 3rd hired minibus. The wife and the 4 daughters are eager to meet the blessed, pure, holy, and loyal Muslim girl, Ifat Khan. Barkatullah told his family that one of his wealthy Arab partners has a very faithful and obedient Indian Muslim maidservant. He told his wife and daughters in particular that when they would meet Ifat Khan they should try to convince her to unveil herself and show them her face and hair, and if possible her legs and shoulders and buttocks too. They should do that in the women's washroom at the airport. Then, if her face and body pleased them, they should tell her about the betrothal of his eldest son, Maqsood Barkatullah. If the blessed girl Ifat accepted the betrothal, they should inform her that they are going to have a big wedding party, and according to the Holy Quran and the blessed Sunnah of the gracious Prophet Muhammad, they will get Maqsood Barkatullah married to the blessed Muslim girl Ifat Khan immediately upon their return from Europe. That day, Sheikh Barkatullah is smartly dressed up to the point that people that have known him before might not have recognized him. If he claimed to be an Indian celebrity, a Bollywood film star, a minister, a UN delegate, or a big shot, no one would deny it. His sons also sported new attire. In keeping with the men, his wife and 4 daughters are dressed up in new Muslim burqas, but their faces are uncovered. Everyone in their social circle came to the airport that particular afternoon to talk to the man of the hour and get his blessings. The happy Wakil is so uncharacteristically generous that day. He is distributing tens, the 50s, and hundreds of Indian rupees notes like flowers or hotcakes. Everyone shook hands with him and got blessed by some money. Every now and then, Mr. Barkatella puts his hand into his pocket, and whatever currency appears at random, he places it in the hand of the man or woman that shook his hand. His pocket is like a lucky jackpot machine. Everyone received according to his or her luck. Some people have gotten 10 rupee notes, some 50 rupee notes, and some incredibly lucky ones got 100 rupee notes. He is not bothered if he finished all of the 100,000 rupees that he got as a first amount of goodwill, which they both called it arbun, from his imprisoned wealthy client Sheikh Ahmed. In fact, he has already used and spent most of it bribing people, his happy celebration, and purchasing fancy clothes for himself and his family. He knows that in less than 24 hours he is going to receive 70 million Indian rupees. His plan all along is to give his accomplices 4 crores of rupees and keep 3 crores rupees for himself. So, when the sun rises again in Europe, he will have in his possession a sum of $1 million. He will give his associates in crime $571,429 and deposit in his overseas bank account $428,571. He knows quite well that amount will be doubled when the trial is successfully over and the old Arab man is exonerated of the hideous crime he had committed against the innocent underage 11-year-old Indian girl Amina Hyder Ali. That means the corrupt judge of the High Court would get as a first installment 20 million rupees, and the 2 crooked police commissioners would receive 10 million rupees each, and the remaining 3 crores would remain deposited in the overseas account of the luckiest and happiest Muslim lawyer in the world. Additionally, the international airport police officers who arrested the kidnapper and rapist of the 11-year-old Indian girl would receive from him 200,000 Indian rupees each. Amina's family would get 50,000 rupees as their first payment. Barkatella volunteered to pay the bribes of those airport police officers and the victim's family from his lion's share. After the trial is successfully conducted and the Arab old man is released with honor, the same distribution process would be repeated again. Barkatella promised to pay the bribes of the airport police officers and Amina's family in cash. For the main judge of the Mumbai Criminal Court and the 2 police commissioners, he would transfer their shares into secret foreign accounts of their choosing. It is up to each one of them which bank they would nominate, be it in an Arab country or a Western country. While Sheikh Barkatella prepared everything, he forgot one critical thing. He reached the international airport 3 hours prior to his flight, as was decided by the imprisoned old serpent. The faithful Indian maidservant Ifat Khan is supposed to reach at the same time and meet him outside the international airport. Then, the plan required the 2 of them to have to proceed toward the departure hall and begin the process of their overseas flight. Howbeit, that particular afternoon Barkatella waited 1 hour outside the airport without his eyes seeing the girl in a black burqa who is called Ifat Khan. He thought that the obedient and loyal Indian Muslim maidservant has come, and did not meet up with him because of his huge retinue of well-wishers. Somehow, he quickly shrugged the small matter off, fearing it might change his fate. He bid his family and admirers farewell, and proudly the happy lawyer has proceeded with his head lifted up inside the departure hall. He spent over a half-hour searching for his female trip partner without seeing her. His head is turning around like a table fan and searching for the holy girl in a black burqa. While he is searching, his old heart is beating inside his chest like an Indian tabla or traditional flat India ceremonial drum. His search for Ifat Khan grew more frantic and crazier every second as the minutes passed by. With the passing of another nail-biting half-hour, when he did not sight his female accomplice in crime who is in the black burqa who had, in the past few weeks, been like his black shadow, he ran to the information office and paid for an urgent announcement. The information office announced the name of Ifat Khan all over the international airport and requested her to come as soon as possible to the inquiry office and meet her uncle Sheikh Barkatella. The announcement is made thrice. Barkatella waited another half-hour at the information office without seeing Ifat Khan. He left the office, ran to another airport office, and inquired about his and his niece's flight. The office confirmed their bookings, but they said they have no clue whether his niece has arrived in the departure hall and passed through the checkpoint and completed her process and headed towards the Indian plane or not. He is advised to rush to the security checkpoint before he missed his flight. The frantic man ran as if being chased by a wild beast. He could not feel his feet or his body. He stumbled on someone's luggage and fell clumsily, ignored the pain and humiliation, got up quickly, and resumed his panicked running. At the departure hall entrance, the airport security prevented his entry because he has neither a passport nor an air ticket. He begged the police to allow him to go in, but his pleadings fell on deaf ears. The police threatened to arrest him and throw him behind bars if he continued to bother them. Sheikh Barkatullah almost cried when the airport police pushed him back. His tears are now falling from his eyes like hot acid. With less than half an hour before takeoff when he heard his name and that of Ifrit Khan being requested to proceed to gate number 14, the announcer stressing that it is a last call for the Zurich flight, he once again presented himself at the boarding checkpoint. When he faced the airport police the second time, explaining that he is responding to the announcement, they once again requested his boarding pass and his Indian passport. He said his Indian passport and air ticket are with his niece Ifrit Khan. One angry Hindu police officer who hates Muslims with bitterness told him to go and find his fucking ugly burqa-clad niece and obtain his travel papers from her, or else he should better get the hell out of here. He stood around until he is kicked out again. This time, he has been given the final warning. If he shows up again without his travel papers, they will fly him in a police car to the Mumbai men's jail. The disturbed and frightened Muslim lawyer dragged his feet and sat on a bench while his eyes are raining down rivers of tears like a heavy rain of cats and dogs. When the Air India plane took off, Sheikh Barkatullah fell on his knees and began to weep. Some kind Indians came and helped him to stand again on his feet. His feet, which moments ago propelled him at breakneck speed, now became so feeble that he has to be helped by some people until he found another bench and sat on it. It took him a long time to come back to his senses. The first step he decided to take is to run to the cheap hotel, find that stupid Indian Muslim girl, and kick her left and right for forgetting to come to the international airport and for unnecessarily missing her flight. When he came out of the crowded area in front of the airport, he found all his family members and admirers had already gone. He absently visualized the happy moment when all of them saw the Air India plane taking off, waving their hands at him. He is not looking forward to the abject shock and sadness when his family members learn that rapture has taken place, but he is left behind. Chapter 33. The life threats to him and his family. While holding his small travel bag in his hand like an Indian worker holding his lunch in a tiny tiffin, the extremely outraged Sheikh Barkatullah stopped a taxi and told the cabbie to take him with the speed of light to Bombay Central. It took him 1 hour to reach Ifrit Khan's hotel. The ride is far from peaceful, with his anger mounting with panic and terror to madness as his taxi driver did battle with the typical Mumbai traffic. When the taxi dropped him in front of the hotel, he felt like exploding in rage at any moment. He forgot to pay the taxi fare until the angry cabbie screamed at him. He then rushed inside the hotel and asked the front desk girl, in a tone that did not hide his indescribable anger, to summon the room of Ifrit Khan and ask her to come down as soon as possible to meet her outraged uncle, the lawyer Sheikh Barkatullah. He has already complained to the front desk that he had missed his flight to Zurich because his niece, Ifrit Khan, had forgotten to come to Mumbai International Airport and fly with him to Europe to conduct a particularly important business deal. The front desk girl at first mistook the mad lawyer for a policeman who came to raid the cheap hotel for allowing male guests to bring in prostitutes of Ferris Road. But when she heard his words, she said to him that their Iranian female guest Ifrit Khan has not returned to the hotel for 2 days. Neither has she checked out of the hotel yet. Her bag and personal effects are still in her room. Barkatullah's heart has missed a few beats and almost stopped due to a major heart attack. He fell on his knees once again and held his head. This time, he did not cry. He would if he could, but he lost some of his senses and his mouth has been paralyzed and his entire body has been frozen as if he has been suddenly thrown into the Arctic. When Sheikh Barkatullah somehow overcame his second huge shock of the day and cleared his mind so he could unravel or understand the mess he found himself having been cast in the midst of it, The first place he decided to go to is the Arthur Road jail. Maybe he could find out what has happened to the accursed girl in the black burqa there. On his way in yet another taxi, he has the sinking feeling that if he could not find out where the Indian maidservant has gone to, he would just simply die of a major heart attack or lose his mind and end up in a mental hospital. He is already beginning to talk to himself as if he is a madman. He talked to Allah and begged him to intervene before he would commit suicide or kill someone else. That now became his third option, none of them particularly appealing. From the exultant status and joyous mood in the international airport, he is now despairing and suicidal. At the jail, he has been told by the guards that the visiting time is over. He has been then advised to come the next day. Barkatullah knows that his mental condition would not allow him to survive for 24 hours without knowing where Ifrit Khan is. Therefore, he paid a bribe of 2,000 rupees and convinced the jail authority to allow him to meet his important Arab client, Mr. Sheikh Firoz bin Ahmed. When the old man has come and also come to know what had happened at the international airport, he spat on the face of his Muslim lawyer 10 times and called him every filthy Hindi word he had learned in jail. He said to him, Mother Chut, Bahan Chut, Teri Maki Chut, Teri Banki Chut, Chutia. He even said to him in Arabic, Kosomakia ibn al-Shamuda, Anik Oktakia ibn al-Kalib. He has accused him of conspiring with his fucking Indian maidservant. The first thought that erupted in the volcano-like mind of the old man is that the Indian Muslim lawyer convinced his Indian wife to deceive her Arab master and steal his money and divide it between them. For that reason, he spat on his lawyer's face and showered him with bad language. He also threatened that he would pay a huge amount of money to some dangerous bloodthirsty Gandas he is now acquainted with inside jail and wipe out Barkatullah, family, and all the stinky foul-smelling Muslim beggars. With his threat registering firmly on his lawyer's face, he gave him 24 hours to abandon his wicked scheme and bring his disobedient Indian maidservant to him, with the two of them kneeling in front of him, repentant and begging of his forgiveness. If his maidservant refused to come to him, he would bribe those gangsters to find her, gang rape her, and then kill her in the cruelest and brutal way that they know. He even swore by his Allah that he would tell his inmate gangsters to tie her legs up between 2 horses and split her body into 2 halves, and that including her dirty pussy, which he fucked by his big phallus many times when they were in Iran. The frightened Muslim lawyer has ignored this bad news about the chaste maidservant being already raped several times by the dirty pedophile and concentrated on his life threats. In fact, Sheikh Ahmed came to know of that inhumane and cruel punishment in the Islamic school while he was studying the biography of his prophet. Muhammad killed an old woman called Gurfa for criticizing him. The prophet instructed her legs to be tied to 2 camels and her body torn into 2 halves. Gurfa was over 100 years old when she was sentenced to her violent death. In keeping with tradition, the mad and extremely outraged old man swore by his Allah that if his lawyer and his maidservant would not show up on the following day, he would send some Muslim terrorists from jail to kill them in exactly the same way. After receiving the serious death threat, Sheikh Barkatullah returned again to the hotel and begged the management to supply him with any clues that might lead him to the whereabouts of their female guest Ifrit Khan. He proposed to pay a few thousand rupees if anyone would give him any clues. The hotel staff apologized and explained that they have not the slightest idea where their hotel female guest went. One front desk girl advised him to search for her in hospitals in case she met with an accident or in police lockups in case she ran in trouble with the law. Barkatullah knows that there are hundreds of hospitals and many police lockups in Mumbai. He might have needed more than a month to go from hospital to hospital and from one police lockup to another. He no longer considered Ifrit Khan as the holiest and honest girl he had met. She is no longer the angel-like Muslim girl. To him, she is now a manifestation of some satanic female creature who deceived him with her false pretension of being holy, obedient, and faithful maidservant to her Arab master. He came to know she is not only maidservant, but a paid whore to the Arab man who claimed to have fucked her dirty pussy many times. He hates her with a passion for turning his great joy and happiness overnight into chaos, panic, and great sadness. He also abhors her with bitterness for snatching his life's opportunity from his hands and in its place, life threats to him and to the members of his family. He knew that if the old Saudi man decided to carry out his threats through his evil jail inmates, his family members, and he would meet their cruel end at the hands of the ruthless Mumbai Muslim gangsters within 24 hours. Sheikh Barkatullah understood that he could not solve the problem of the mysteriously disappeared Indian maidservant alone. He decided to involve his accomplices in his search for the missing Indian maidservant of his Arab client. He wasted no time phoning the police commissioner of Mumbai and told him about the sad news and asked him to help him in locating the missing girl. The police commissioner has even become more disturbed and troubled than the Muslim lawyer. More than just the 20 million rupees in the balance, this is a man who is not used to being swindled. He told Barkatullah that he would mobilize the entire police department of Mumbai searching for Ifat Khan. He promised to find her within 24 hours. The citywide search hit its first hurdle when they realized that they have no photo of Ifat Khan. Coming in from Iran, the only clue the 18-year-old has left behind is a photocopy of her passport at the hotel, issued when she was 8-year-old. The police commissioner contacted the Mumbai international and domestic airports. Neither airports did not find a record of a girl by that name or description traveling out of the city. The police commissioner sent over 1,000 police officers to all the railway stations in Mumbai in search of the missing girl. They could neither disprove nor confirm that Ifat Khan left on a train. Every hospital and police lockup in the city has been meticulously searched. In less than 24 hours, the cosmopolitan city has been searched in and out, as if the earth was opened up and swallowed Ifat Khan in. During that citywide painstaking search, the Muslim wakil, Sheikh Barkatullah rented a room in a cheap motel near the Hotel of Ifat and spent the entire night on his knees crying to his exalted Allah and begging his holy Prophet Muhammad to intervene and save him and his family from the greatest catastrophe that he has ever encountered in life.